Air supremacy is difficult to achieve in a sci-fi setting, especially in a grimdark universe. It's not just enemy fighters and anti-aircraft batteries you need to worry about. There are gargantuan alien creatures, and there are demonic entities that can fly, and there's psychic powers that are capable of reaching to the sky itself. There are orbital weapons, void shields, and lots of technologies that don't exist in our world. But despite all of that, I still think control of the air is one of the most important advantages a Space Marine force can possess. Because once you stop thinking about Space Marines as a conventional army and start thinking about them as an elite mobile strike force, everything changes. You see, an Imperial Guard army can afford losses. A Space Marine chapter can't. Every battle brother represents decades of training, priceless war gear, and genetic material that may never be replaced. These warriors are among the rarest military assets in the Imperium. You don't send assets like that into a fair fight. You don't drop them onto a battlefield and hope they can march across open ground under enemy fire to reach an objective, or ask them to lay siege and grind through a war of attrition. You stack the odds in their favour. You gather intelligence. You establish orbital superiority. You suppress enemy air defences, and then you unleash overwhelming force exactly where it is needed. That's where aircraft like the Lightning and the Xiphon come in. I chose these two types of fighter with one eye on aesthetics and the other on the lore. I will field fewer flights of the Xiphon fighters, bearing in mind they are an older model in the lore, but are somewhat more void capable than the newer Lightnings. And combined, they will provide plenty of anti-armor and area denial capabilities for my army. Not as supporting units or optional extras, but as an essential part of the operation. Before the first Marine lands, the fighters should already be hunting enemy aircraft. They should be clearing approach corridors, destroying radar installations, attacking command centres, and eliminating threats that would endanger the strike force. So, when the Marines do arrive, they aren't fighting an enemy at full strength. They're fighting an enemy that has already been blinded, isolated, and weakened. And that's why I'm building my fighting tigers the way I would build an epic army rather than a traditional 28mm 40K force. Aircraft, armor, reconnaissance assets, orbital support, elite infantry. A complete combined arms system designed to deliver devastating force at the decisive point. Because that's what makes the Space Marines different to the other forces of the Imperium. Not just bigger and better guns or thicker armour, not because they're heroic characters charging into combat. Mobility. The ability to appear anywhere and strike everywhere. And in this case, the ability to bring overwhelming firepower to bear before the enemy even understands what is happening. And when I picture a Space Marine chapter at war, that's what I see. Not a few squads riding around in rhinos. I see contrails crossing the sky, thunderhawks descending from orbit, with fighters screaming overhead and targets disappearing in precise strikes. Now, I don't have any Thunderhawks yet. They are still being printed, so I'll feature them in another video. The Storm Eagles of the 10th Company will have to fill their role until they finally arrive. You might think achieving all this within the rules is difficult, because squadrons of 12 Lightning fighters don't seem to be part of the codex, but that's all covered within the 8th edition Apocalypse rule set, which is currently what we think we might use to bring games of this magnitude to the table. But it is difficult in terms of time and resources to bring this many models to the table, even if they are 3D printed to save money. It's a lot to build and paint, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm determined to make sure my chapter is equipped as I think it should be, according to my law, limited by my budget and my hobby time available to build the squadrons. One thing I'm still working out is how big our games will be in terms of table size. As the chapter grows, I'm running out of room on this 8-foot by 6-foot workbench to actually lay out the whole army. And that says to me, I'll need to plan a much larger than usual playing space for our Apocalypse style games. But for now, the challenge is to get these first flights of fighters finished so they can join the Storm Eagles and start bringing a whole new dimension to our games. I'd love to hear your opinions on flyers in 40k or 40k Apocalypse games, whether you find them effective or too expensive to justify in terms of points or real money, and how many flyers you might trade for the more traditional Rhinos and Land Raiders that we see a lot more of often on our tables. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. And if you're using a mobile with iOS or Android app, please click the hype button if you can see it. It really helps share these videos to many, many more people. And with that, I'll see you on the battlefield.